Ready? Three, two, and one. Howdy, everyone. Welcome to Red Thoughts with Perry Picasso. I am your host, Perry, and today I am joined by a very, very lovely friend of mine and an amazingly talented artist, Miss Dama Divina. Woo! Hello.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm just peachy. I'm very excited to do this. I've been wanting to interview you for a good while now,
Oh,
honestly.
really?
Yeah, no, I feel like you're just such an interesting artist
Mm.
and person in general. Like
Oh, thank
ever
you.
since I met you, we've just every time I'm with you, we can yap for hours.
We can. I love to talk for sure.
We love a good yap session. So yeah, I guess welcome. So this is Dama Divina. Um, she has her work right now currently at display at the Cheech for the Desde Los Cielos group show that was curated by Emmanuel and me. And it'll be up there from now until March 16th of 2025. Go check it out. And Jesse has a beautiful piece in there called,
The Divine Trine.
it's a lovely, lovely piece. It's a self-portrait, correct? Or no?
Yes. So I
Yes?
did use my face as a reference for
Okay.
like the deity. Yes.
Okay, slay. So yeah, before we sort of, dive deep into that, I would like to go deep into learning more about you. So yeah, tell me about you, your history, just sort of like how long have you been doing art? Because I know that you have a very interesting journey
Mm.
of that. And I think that it'd be very inspiring for other folks to hear that. So yeah.
Okay. So I used to do art when I was younger, just like many of us, right? But I actually didn't start painting until I was probably like in my teens.
Okay.
I learned in high school or, eighth grade, high school kind of
Right.
age. That's when I first got exposed to oil paint, and I did that for 2 years, and I did really well to the point where my school put me into Cal State of Northridge, their student gallery, and I ended up getting a scholarship. And
Slay, slay.
but due to circumstances, I could not pursue that. And my family ended up moving to the Inland Empire from Los Angeles. And I left that school, I left the area, and I just kind of felt that, you know what, maybe art wasn't for me. And so I put that away for about 10 years, up until like 2 years ago. And
Wow, that's a big gap.
yeah, it is. It's a long time. I pursued like other types of jobs that weren't in the creative field, and
So when you sort of were taking that 10-year gap, I'm guessing it was not by choice.
right, like I just felt like circumstances. I was not in a space where I could create freely. I don't think I had the resources. I also was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life and what direction I was going. So I was trying a lot of different things. And one of the things that stuck with me the most was being a behavior analysis. I did that on and off for about 6 years.
Okay.
And it was cool until it wasn't.
This was during the 10-year gap, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yes. And then during that 10-year gap, too, I decided that I wanted to go back to school, college, and I decided to study sociology and then minor in psychology. So I didn't study art, I didn't continue the painting until I was like entering university at Cal State Fullerton, finishing up my degree, and I ended up having a mental breakdown at my job, and I just couldn't handle doing school and work full time both. And all of a sudden I had an opportunity to quit, and so I did, and then I just had all this time that I didn't know what to do with. And I started to realize how unfulfilled, I was, because ultimately humans are meant to create.
Yeah.
Right. And I wasn't creating anything. I was very much in that rat race. I was very much of like, I have to do a bunch of, I didn't have enough time to even think about right now.
Right. You're just in like survival mode.
Yeah, I was very much in survival mode and always being like, okay, what's the next thing? Okay, I got to go to university. Okay, I need to get a better job. I need a 401k, whatever. And so when I had all this time, ended up moving to Riverside, and I ended up meeting Rosie Cortez.
Shout out to Rosie, an amazing artist, also shown right now at the Cheech. I love
And
Rosie.
I do too. And, I would say she was probably one of the first people to really believe in me. I ended up showing the things that I created in high school. And then she saw me working in the studio once I joined that group studio. And she gifted me a Gablin painting set. So, yeah, that's kind of how I got started in the arts about like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's just a very common sort of story with a lot of artists in which you sort of divert. Because Emmanuel last time was telling me that they went for an entirely different thing. They didn't even do art until like same thing like their last year, um, and then suddenly switching over. I think I just know a lot of artists who go in for like one field and then literally the last semester they're there, they take like a studio class and they're like, actually, this is what I meant to be doing. Like I was, whatever. But I think that it's because I feel like sometimes people are afraid to take that risk because they're like, I've already invested so much time in doing biology or doing, whatever other field that they're like, when I do art, like it's just gonna feel like I wasted all that time. But I'm curious for you, did you sort of feel that way? Was there any sort of hesitation, or did you sort of see what you already studied as sort of like a superpower of some sorts of like, well, I can actually use this for my advantage because now I know this and this can go into my practice.
Yeah, like it definitely didn't start off that way. It was just more of like I was like recovering from that mental breakdown and was trying to find enjoyment in my life, right? Which caused me to find painting and drawing again. But then as I continued through uni, I was like, okay, this is something I really like to do, right? Which is art. But
Yeah.
then I also really love studying groups of people and to the individual level, right? And and I was able to combine the two in my way for with my other art. Maybe not towards the one in the Cheech per se, but
Right.
for my other art, I try to combine my studies with the art that I create and like the meanings for those things. So I think the good thing about not going to art school is that I feel I have an advantage from those who did go to art school because of I did take one art class or two art classes in Cal State Fullerton. So I was with around art majors, and I find that yes, you can learn technical skills, and yes, I'm not docking on art school. I think art school is great, but I think the professors don't really focus on context, right? It's more technical skills. It's not like, what is this supposed to mean? Let's push the level and really like, what do you want to say, right?
Yeah.
Because when you make art, it's a platform, right? To speak upon whatever you want to speak about. It doesn't really matter. And I feel like because it's an institution, and this is where like my major comes in, and maybe like right like and this is where my major comes in, like of sociology. It's like being able to look at like institutions with a like critical eye
Yeah.
and see where they fall short. And because I remember like even me graduating, entering their they had a group show, right, for the art students, and I'm the only one that's not an art student. The board for the master program for the arts, they came up to me because they found out I was going to be in the Cheech, and obviously that would look really good
To
if
have them in the shows, but
right
right.
to have them in the show, to be an alumni of their master program, right? And I remember she like kind of I would say it was like a pitch, was like, oh, have you thought of being in our master program? And I remember asking like, why, for what? And she kind of looked at me like,
That's a bold question.
right. But I'm like, you're pitching though. Like you're
Right.
pitching. Like,
Yeah.
like, am I going to pay $30,000 for something that I'm already doing?
Yeah.
Not to say that it's not valuable, but
You're just not. That's not where you're.
it's not where I'm at right now. And really all the answer she could give me was like, oh, so you could be a teacher. Well, I don't know if that's really what I want to do.
Right.
Right. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. Because I do know that sometimes when people go to art school, you do sort of get in that bubble of, as somebody who went to an art school, like you sort of are in that bubble of like artists and sort of like in this sort of, I don't know, like the way you sort of communicate with art and
Right.
artists, like it's just it's like its own, yeah, just like its own little bubble that kind of feels separate from the world. So I always find it interesting when somebody who comes in who didn't go to art school because they have an entirely different perspective and
Right.
they also don't have the trauma of art school. Because a lot of these art classes can be very intense. So
You know, I
yeah.
will say when I was in high school, I had those same experiences. So my teacher saw that I had a lot of promise, right?
Hmm.
Had a lot of potential. And I think as a woman, right? I think she was trying to just like, I guess, warn me about the art world. And she was much older, right? So the art world was very different for her. I remember she told me that, you know, Jesse, if you go out there, they're going to chew you up and spit you out. And I remember that really deterred me away from ever putting my art really out there because
What grade were you in?
I was probably like in ninth or 10th grade.
Wow.
Yeah, because I went to a private school.
Okay.
So like I definitely had like a college level like education in painting. Like
Wow.
I would say because when I went to community college and you know you have electives, right? I actually took a class of this professor that my teacher was actually like referencing.
Hmm.
So it was very cool experience to be like, "Hey man, like I know your technique because I took it
Right.
already," you know?
Yeah.
Which was cool, you know? So that was my experience. So, and I think she just did it to protect me,
Right. The
you
older
know?
generation, that's their way of
Yeah.
protecting.
Yeah, just being like this is a really hard, you know, and it is. It is a hard
Yeah.
like profession to be in. So yeah.
Okay. And I'm curious of sort of like when throughout this journey, did you have anyone that was sort of pushing you to do this, or was it just all sort of like, no, like I want to, or like, because I don't know, just like I'm thinking just like a 10-year gap and then to sort of find that back again, like,
So yeah, like so I remember when I quit my job and like I had all this time and this was like right when I started like uni. I started to just think like, what do I even fucking like to do? Because like when you're in
okay.
survival mode for so long, you forget who you are.
Yeah.
You know, you forget what you like to do. And, you know, I dug in my memories and I was like, oh, well, I used to like to draw. Like I used to
I
like to,
dabbled in
right.
there.
I was like, and actually I was kind of good, you know? And I remember I was drawing. I had a little like kind of like a communal garden space in my old apartment, and I sat out there and I was just drawing the landscape. And my neighbor, my upstairs neighbor, she was like, "Oh, like that's pretty good," you know. And it kind of just went from there. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the art walk. And
Okay.
that's kind of how. And then I
And it like
met.
snowballed from there.
Yeah, because I actually met Clarissa Cervantes live painting, and she was wearing the East Art House like shirt, right? And I just asked her, "What is that?"
Hmm.
And that's kind of how like a snowball effect. So it was literally just like I just knew I needed to find something, and I think what I was really looking for was not only who I am, right, but like also a community,
Hmm.
right? Because I was really lacking that.
Yeah, no, for sure. So that's I'm very sweet that you found like Rosie and were able to have
Yeah.
someone like that to like. I think it's sometimes all it really does take is just like one person to be like, I truly believe in you.
Yeah, and you know what? Yeah, she really did that for me. Like I
Yeah,
think giving me that painting set you know, made me be like, you know, now I gotta fucking show off. Like,
yeah,
you know,
right. Put this to use.
right, you know, because she really was like, no, I believe in you. And she's like, I think you can do it, you
Right.
know? And that's kind of just been on this role of like being, just like showing that I can do this, even if I don't have the proper, education.
I love that. I'm curious, have you, now that you've sort of been on the art journey a little more, have you been able to give the opportunity to somebody else, or has that opportunity presented itself, or yeah,
Opportunity to do.
to sort of be that, like, do you ever feel like maybe you're sort of that light to someone else?
Yeah.
Aw,
Yeah.
good.
Like sometimes, you know, like I don't like to put myself in those positions because I feel like I'm still very much of an amateur and still very much like growing myself. But, you know, there's
I think
these,
you're insanely talented, but
oh,
call,
thank
I
you.
guess, continue.
But, you know, when I hear people say like they feel a certain way about their art or just putting themselves out there, right? Because we all start from somewhere.
Right.
I mean, you've seen my first paintings, like, you know,
They were still really good, but yes.
but you know, like, but I've improved so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell I told this one girl that I was like, only good things can come if you do something you love. right? Only good things can come, right? If you're doing something for the joy of it because you like it, and it's obviously not hurting anyone, right? It's like only good things can come. So just
Yeah.
keep going.
I love
Yeah, so just
that.
keep going. I remember when we were at the opening of the Cheech, there was, I think it was the daughter or the niece of, what's his name? Lawrence. He did like the heart, and it was next to yours, and it had the lights.
Oh, Faustino?
Yes. Yeah,
Faustino.
I think it was one of his family members, and she came up to me and she was just like, I just think you're really beautiful. Can I take a photo of you? And I was like, of course.
Oh.
And she was just like, I just really admire you. And then her mom came in and was like, oh, my daughter's an artist. And then I was just like, just keep going. I was like, there's only up. There's only up,
Oh.
baby. I was like, you just gotta keep going. And like, as coming from somebody that started, from the bottom too, and not having that proper education, and I'm just like, just go for it.
Yeah.
Because honestly, you're just like competing with just yourself.
Mm-hmm. And that's so cute. I love
Yeah,
that.
no, it was a very touching moment, and I never, that was like the first experience I ever really had of like a stranger approaching me and just being like, wow, like I really, admire you, and like, and then to have the opportunity to offer those words of encouragement to like a
Yeah.
stranger, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like I try to offer to the people that I know or who are going through it, right? Because it's like I've been there too, but to do it to a stranger was a very unique experience.
I love that. And I think that it's also, I also think it's, I don't know, just like another, just like an interesting thing that it's like a little girl looking up to you, like,
Yeah,
because it's like, it's hard to have, like, there's not very, I mean, there are a lot of wonderful, talented artists. But it's just, I don't know, to see sort of like yourself be represented in that way, it's like, I would imagine that it would be, priceless.
yeah, and like also too, like growing up, like for myself, like I always saw artists as really pretentious.
Yeah.
Like I hate to say that, and it very like clicky and very exclusive as well, right? And
Yeah.
it's not something that was like for everyone.
It's not
And
accessible at all. The language, the price
right.
to go in, sometimes the times to go in. No, it's a very exclusive club, unfortunately.
Right. And I feel like, art should be for all,
Yeah.
regardless of what you create. And, if this is something you pursue, like, yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, it's going to take, however long, but like only good things can come from it.
Yeah.
If that's really what you want to do, and if that's what's aligned with you, then just do it. Cause like eventually you'll get where you want to be.
Yeah. 100%. I love that. Okay. I'm just like, ooh. Okay, so then you come back and you started doing work, and then you graduate from college, and now you're at the Cheech. So I would love to hear more about sort of your art practice. So when you did sort of get into the art, like what was it that drew you in? Like what was sort of because I know that can be sometimes a little bit daunting when you don't, when, especially when you're picking it up for the first time or picking it up after a long time, and it's like, where do I even begin? And I know you said at first you did the sketch in the garden, and I'm curious, like after that, like was it just a lot of just sort of sketching here and there, or were you already having like, well, I've been thinking about this a lot, and sort of diving deeper into that because you have a very just like I don't know, just like a very you're the topics that you choose to explore in your pieces, I think, are very interesting. So
Thank
I'm
you.
always just like very intrigued. Like, how did that start for you?
So I guess like so at home before getting into that group studio, I did a lot of just sketching around my house and sketching of my dog, like right,
Right.
and they weren't like that good, but it was just to get into the habit of creating, and that is right, and just being
Yeah.
okay, right, because I suffer from perfectionism, and allowing myself to make mistakes is a very difficult thing for me to do because I, as we all do, we hold ourselves to such a high standard,
Right.
which sometimes it's not realistic, right? Especially, I didn't paint, I didn't draw for 10 years. Of course, I'm not going to be how it was before, right?
Right.
Because it's a muscle, it's something that you have to practice. That's the same reason why I don't believe in talent per se, because sure, you can be naturally gravitated to something and something can come to you quickly, but you still have to work at it.
Yeah.
What was the question?
Oh, how did like what was sort of I guess, like the first thing that you started exploring outside of just sort of like the quick sketches? Like, I guess your first theme and sort of like, how did that come about? And like your thought process with themes in general.
Yeah, so I guess like when I first started, because I didn't paint for 10 years, I felt like in a way I have been silenced.
Okay.
And I wasn't allowed to express myself in the ways that I wanted to, or even just telling my own story. I felt like people were not interested in me like growing up, and I felt like that's not what I like wanted. So like the first painting I did, I believe, was that jellyfish piece.
Okay.
Yeah, and I named it Small Wonders, and it was because I went to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and I saw this really cute family, and she was like touching the jellyfish, and I just thought, and I just took a photo of them without their consent. but
Okay.
but like you couldn't see their faces,
Okay. So it was like
It was
back.
like, yeah, their backs, but it was such a beautiful silhouette where I was like, wow, that could be any girl. That could be me. That could be anyone that resonates with going to the aquarium and seeing the wonders, right? Such small wonders of the ocean, right? Which are like jellyfish or any other animals. And so that was kind of like I wanted people to see little snapshots of my life, of like what was like beautiful, right? Part of it was also practice. I didn't, landscapes and
Right.
right, animal.
Continuing the exercise. Yep.
Right. It wasn't until a couple months in I made the restricted series,
Okay.
right? And that was when it got a little bit more, like I guess, deeper
Okay.
with like the bondage and stuff like that. And I just felt like that really was like the starting point of me really having a voice, of being like, this is what I'm about, this is what I want to say. And I felt like that really represented of me being silenced for 10 years due to
Right.
circumstances, due to the patriarchy, due to whatever, right? So,
Yeah, and those are an incredible series. For the people who don't know, could you tell us a little more about the Bondage series if you're comfortable?
sure.
Yeah, because I think that those from the start, because I feel like that was probably like your first sort of series, I would
Yeah,
say.
I was.
And like from the start, like it has such a strong concept and such a strong story and narrative that it sort of was like, to me, it was like, that's your like first comeback. Like you came back swinging. So like, tell
I,
us.
I was not fucking around.
She was not. She's like, I'm here on business.
I really was. I really was. And I
So
think,
yeah,
and I
tell us
think,
about that series.
yeah, and I think because of being who I am, right? And, I was a little bit more like insecure and stuff like that. And I guess I just really wanted to find my voice and just be like, you know what? I'm here.
Okay.
This is what I want to say. This is my narrative. This is how I feel. And I know other women or other people who are femme representing, they feel the same way.
Yeah.
They feel that their silence or their flesh is constricted and contorted into something that's not even like recognizable, right? It's not even a person anymore, right? You're just like a thing. And that's how I felt.
Just flesh.
Just flesh, something to be used, and like that doesn't have, I guess, an opinion or a mouth to speak, So that was like the first series that I came through, was just like feeling this restricted movement of expression.
Yeah, and it's also just, I also love the fact that they're on like, as you're talking about this more and more, that I'm like really remembering that they're on pretty small canvases too. They're like two by
Yes.
two,
No, so they're like
4 by 4,
six.
6 by 6.
Yeah, it's still pretty small, little squares.
Like little squares, and
Yeah.
like because of the scale, the bodies are sort of like, so even like within the frame themselves are like like contained very tightly, and the fact that it's even smaller makes it feel like it's even like more compressed. And then you have the like red, what do you call that,
The rope.
the red rope pulling at it, tugging at it. So it's just like a very strong series.
Yeah, and like for somebody that was only like 3 months in, like,
Crazy. Crazy.
but yeah, I guess like also reason why I did on small canvases is because I wanted to emulate the feelings of intimacy.
Okay.
right? Because in order,
You
right,
have to get
you
close.
have to get close. And I feel like in art school, or even my own professor when I took that class, it's big or go home, right?
Yeah.
Which, yes, go big. I
Right.
love that for you,
Bigger's better.
but I do believe that you can convey meaning with using size to your advantage.
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to portray. And I also think it's harder to paint smaller. And that was a skill that I wanted to perfect
Yeah.
and get better at. And so that's why I did smaller scale. But I also wanted it to, when people look at the art, you have to get close to it to feel like you're actually being intimate with a person. So it just kind of like goes in with that experience.
Oh, absolutely. Because I'm imagining, like, if these were larger, I don't think that it would have quite the same intimate effect just because it would seem almost grander than life. It would almost be like a caricature.
Yeah, and I feel like that would also like I guess perpetuate the idea like as if it was on a screen, right?
Right.
And being like, "Oh, this is to be displayed." When really like these times like it's more of like an intimate like moment that not everybody gets to experience. And that's what I wanted because I feel like when you're with a person,
Yeah. Because
you
if
know.
you're viewing it and if they're like a line on the, on the wall, it's pretty much just like a one person viewing. I mean, I guess two, but like once somebody's in front of it, it covers it from everyone else.
Yeah.
So I really like that. I think that playing with sort of size, scale, and sort of the way it's being presented will tell a viewer like how to interact with it as well.
Yeah. And it's so funny like that series was actually like an idea that I had like years ago. And I just kept those photos that I use for reference, like just in the archives for like, I don't know, like maybe 5 years. And I was just
Yeah.
like, one day, and I told myself this too, one day I'll paint this.
Yeah.
And I did.
I think that's also another important thing that I love telling artists is like keep a personal archive, keep a personal. I have like boxes of literal just like scraps of paper of like magazines that I rip up or like I don't know, like literally even like wrapping paper that I really like the like patterns or the colors of, or like business cards that I take, or like fabric samples, and I just have this like box of them that like you never know when years later you'll open it back up and you're like, I know exactly what I need this for now.
Exactly. I think that's part of just like being aligned with yourself and like, yeah, you just never know like when those themes will come back up again,
Hmm.
And I think that's like important because even though that was me in the past, it was like it still was relevant
Yeah,
in the future.
no, exactly. So I would now like to hear a little bit more about the painting you have right now at the Cheech. So let me pull up the. I'm gonna read you the description that you wrote
Okay.
down,
Yeah.
if that's okay.
No, 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 that's
Okay.
perfect. That's
So the Divine Shrine is an oil on canvas painting made in 2024. For centuries, humans have been fascinated by the trines because they embody universal principles of harmony, stability, and flow. The number three and the triangle have deep philosophical and spiritual connotations. Many belief systems, including Christianity, the Holy Trinity, Buddhism, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, and practitioners of astrology, trines represent the positive flow of energy. See the triangle or the number three as a representation of divine order, balance, and completeness. Thus, they are representations of universal truth and wisdom. One could say trines are divine gifts in the physical and metaphorical forms sent from the heavens for our interpretation. My process is to combine these ancient beliefs to create a new way of storytelling, one that fits the narrative of tapping into the divine that lays dormant within, waiting to be called upon to begin the soul's true journey. As I cultivate and visualize my desires, I can birth a new reality into existence and attract experiences that resonate with my soul's purpose with the help of my higher self. Embracing this journey means understanding that I am not just a passive observer, but an active participant in the co creation of my life, inviting love, joy, and abundance into every aspect of existence. That is beautiful.
thank you.
So, yeah, tell me for this show,
Hmm.
when you first heard about it, when we first told you about it, what was your first initial thoughts of the show? Because, like, I know that was it me or Emmanuel that approached you, or was it both of us at the same
I mean,
time?
I think it was both of you, but I will say when I had the fever dream of the piece that was in, because that's really how this started. Was like
You love a fever
I
dream.
had a fever dream. I came to the studio and I was like, Perry, can you help me? Can you help me make these triangle canvases?
Oh,
Because
wait, this happened before the Cheech.
yes, no,
Yes.
this was
Okay.
before I had this idea, before you
Yes.
guys even told me about it.
Yes, I remember
And I
now.
was like, and then I started telling you about it, and you were like, I just think you would be perfect for this show that we're thinking of.
Yes.
So
Okay.
like this was
Wait, no, yeah, because that was in November when I was working on my show. Okay, yeah.
mhm.
November, she literally just comes into the studio and I'm like painting or I don't know, like taking pictures or something. And she comes and goes, I had a vision.
I really did.
She's like, I had a fever dream that I need to get out and I need to make these triangle canvases today. Can you help me? And I was just like, what? Okay, sure. And so she literally goes to her car and pulls out like, like wood, like literal, just like 2x4 pieces of wood and molding, and then like a roll of canvas and goes, we're gonna build it from scratch. And so we literally go to the back and we like are cutting wood and like it was so funny. She was like didn't think that I would be able to do it because I had these like long ass nails. And I'm like, all right, let me just start the saw. And we literally just start cutting the wood and build this massive triangle canvas.
And it's pretty
Three of
massive.
them.
Yeah, three of them.
Three of them.
So the big one is approximately, because it's a triangle, it's not perfect measurements, right? But it's about 5 feet tall. It's a pretty large
Yeah.
like canvas that we made. And then with the leftover wood we made like maybe like 2.5 feet, like smaller canvas, which were a lot easier to make.
Yeah.
I remember like we were doing it and like we almost killed my hand. Um, because we were literally, there was no blueprints in making this triangle canvas.
Yeah.
We had to literally look up a YouTube video on how to make a triangle shelf, and then I just used like my common sense to be like, okay, and then we'll just put like a bar in the back, like
Right.
yeah, and I
We're
was
like, and
like,
then we'll do this here and then this here and
and
it worked.
it worked, yeah. So
Yeah.
honestly, like that was a really fun time. So that was actually before you
The
guys even
show,
really met.
yeah.
But because I told you that, you were like, oh my god,
Yeah.
because I think that was probably when you guys were talking about it.
Yeah, during that time was when Emmanuel and I were first talking in general about sort of alienness in Chicano culture. That was around, yeah, November, December.
So yeah, that was kind of like how that all started. So I just had this like dream or something that I was like, I need to do something on a triangle canvas, and I want it to be based on astrology, because at the time, I mean, even now, I'm still very much into Vedic astrology. I use it to kind of guide some actions, right, and do some like monthly predictions. And so I wanted something to like represent me in astrology, and then also with my religious background, because regardless, even though I'm not religious currently, it still influenced me,
Right.
right? It's still very much a part of me, right? Even if though I choose not to practice it. And so yeah, that was kind of like how that idea came to fruition.
That's so cool. So yeah, it was literally just like perfect that one I
It was divine timing.
it really was.
It was divine timing, and that's something that I feel like is a constant theme in my life, is just like the divine timing, like,
What does divine timing mean to you?
I guess like it's just like the best can happen when you least expect it.
Right.
Right.
What is meant to be will be.
Right,
When
yeah.
it's meant to be.
Right, and that may not be according to your timeline, but it'll happen when it needs to happen.
Yeah. Which is so interesting because yeah, that's like one the whole point of the piece, but also like that did just happen as well.
It did, and yeah, it was fun to make it. It was
So
it took all day.
I know. So for the actual piece, when you had that vision, did you have that exact composition, that exact thing, or how did that come about?
So it went through many different iterations.
Okay.
At first, I was looking towards more like I don't know if I want to call it Renaissance like style paintings, but I was
Okay.
looking at that like with the how they would draw like Mary and or Jesus and stuff like that. So the first iteration of it was actually supposed to be me doing like the Holy Trinity like hand,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was gonna have like my signs like on my fingers and but the thing is though, when I was thinking about it in my head, I didn't like the composition. I thought the
Mm.
composition was very simple and it just wasn't doing it. Like it was still a cool concept.
It wasn't giving what it needed to give.
It wasn't giving. And I would say that to get to where it is now, I think it took like maybe a month or a month and a half of like going like redoing it, what can add to it. So it took a while. It took a while to get to its final form. Honestly, it took probably like the whole year. Like,
Yeah, like up until right before you started.
yeah, honestly, because I thought of many different things, but it just wasn't like hitting.
Okay. What made this one feel right?
I think when I added the gold triangle,
Okay, the triangle within the
yeah,
triangle.
I thought that was a really cool like composition, and I think when I added the lotus flower.
The lotus flower is
Yeah, when
beautiful.
I added the lotus flower, I was like, okay, this is giving more, and it's giving more than just somewhat like a figure,
Yeah,
right? And then when I decided, like, you know what, I'm gonna paint her blue, and I'm gonna give her 6 arms,
right.
and it became something more because then when I was, the title of the show from the heavens, I was very much of like, what would come from the heavens, and I was like, some type of deity,
Okay.
right? And I think I'm very much of a person that I don't like to diminish other people's religions.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you, let's say you believe in something specific, like yes, I am spiritual, but I think there is a validity in other people's like spirituality, and I just felt like, what if I combine different aspects of different religions, because ultimately they all talk about the same thing.
There's a similar thread throughout them all.
Yeah, and maybe just presentation is just different, and that's something that I kind of wanted to like create like a new way, just like I was saying, like a new way of storytelling,
Yeah,
of like something new, and it could be just whatever you want it to be.
yeah. No, I think that definitely shows through. I know that when we first put it up, or when you were showing me, my first thought was like, this reminds me very much of the Virgin Mary, specifically La
Yeah.
Virgen de Guadalupe, because it's a very iconic Mexican thing, and also the specific, especially because of Ulisa's piece, as well as referencing that one, which is
That was
crazy.
crazy.
Like that, you guys didn't even really like consider that before until we were literally putting it together, and we're like, oh my
We
gosh,
didn't even talk.
I
Like we
know.
didn't even talk. Like that's what's crazy. Like and the fact that we were like thinking the same thing,
Yeah,
cuz
blue. It's a very specific shade of blue too.
yeah, and it's because I think for the reason why I did blue was not only to kind of tie in with the with like Hindu gods, right? But also like the term blue blood, right?
Oh,
No, this piece was very well thought out.
please tell me more.
So the term blue blood, right? If you hear that, it's like people of like high authority or royalty, and that's because
Oh,
if you look at like specifically white people, but I would even say like myself, right? Like if you look at my veins, they are blue. And that's because I
oh
have a
yeah.
cool undertone. And so therefore you would be a blue blood, right? So it's a person of royalty. Or
Oh,
right, and that means like if my blood were to spill, it would be blue, which is not true.
right,
Right, because that's not how it. This is from like fucking like medieval like
right. This is like some medieval.
yeah, it's not,
That's
but
so
that's what
crazy.
the origin of that story, that they were almost like not human when really it's just white people trying to colonize and being like, we're better than you, than people who are different skin tones, right? But that was also like the connection of that, because then we see deities like in Hinduism where they're blue, and they also had blue blood.
Interesting
Yeah.
connection. No, I love hearing like all of the different sort of like references, and I know that the figure also is pregnant.
Yes.
How did that come about?
I
Because
just
I don't know, like, because if I'm thinking about sort of the connection for me personally, I'm trying to think of like the Virgin, the Guadalupe. She has the baby underneath, so I was like, the baby's like in her,
right. Well, because if
but I
you
feel like this is like an entirely different deity that has no correlation to her, though.
right. Yeah, it is a different deity. And obviously I took influence from that because the baby that's actually like holding Guadalupe up it's not like Jesus or anything.
I know.
It's a
I had that
it's
realization in
yeah.
my last week with Emmanuel. He was like, that's not baby Jesus, and I was like,
No, it's a misconception. It's a
yeah,
misconception,
okay,
and
it's a
that's okay.
cherub.
Yeah, it's a cherub. Yeah, and usually like it's a different, and it's a very Renaissance like cherub because cherubs are actually very terrifying. Read the Bible.
Okay.
Yeah, like they have like 1,000 eyes and. Like you look at them and you die.
Oh.
It's pretty terrifying. But the Renaissance were like, let's keep it cute.
Keep it classy.
Keep it classy, keep it cute. Let's make it a baby. So for me, making the woman pregnant, because through my religious upbringing, I always saw if it wasn't Mary, right, holding baby Jesus, she was always pregnant. Like I feel
Oh,
like
that's
I felt like
right.
a lot of
Yeah.
depictions I seen of her was always pregnant, right? Because she had the holy birth, right? And I just felt like that was like metaphorical for me, of like giving life to a new creation, giving birth to a new reality. And I think that's something that for women is so special, is that you have that ability to create life, and
Yeah.
and I feel like you can use that as a metaphor for anything, to create the life that you want, or a new life, or just something different. So
That's so
to
cool.
bring change.
Yeah. I'm curious as well of just sort of like what you're hoping. How do you think you'll be fitting sort of in the puzzle of like because you identify as Chicana or Chicane or Latino?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how do you sort of imagine yourself after this show? Like, what impact are you hoping to have, or like fitting in sort of the lexicon of Chicano history? Like, like curious about if you've ever thought about that, because you are now going to be, because you created this work and it's in this institution. Like,
Right.
yeah, have you?
I have not.
Okay.
You know what? Like, I will say that this whole journey has been, I just been doing stuff. Like, if I'm going to be really honest, like, even though I do make a lot of my work with intention, it's never the intention to, I guess, necessarily put a label on me.
Okay.
Yeah. Or it just talks about the different aspects of myself. Right.
Okay.
And, to be honest, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, that's fine. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot
No,
of
that's,
artists would just make work, and then it's not until like afterwards they're like, oh,
yeah.
that's what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that being in the show was something special, and I
Okay.
and I, and I
Right.
knew I wanted to bring something, and I wanted to bring something different, because
Okay.
I feel like, so because of who I am somebody who is mixed, right? And I feel like I have a lot of different influences, and I have a different type of narrative that is not as commonly like spoken about.
Yeah.
I do not have immigrant parents. I'm not, it's first gen, right? My family has been living in LA for 100 years. Like,
Oh, 100 years.
yeah,
Oh, wow. So they were like,
yes.
okay.
This was Mexico. Like, we were here.
Okay.
Like, so like I don't have that experience that, a lot of people which is completely valid, that are telling,
Right.
and it's important. But I feel like there are people who are like me, who you do have connection to your culture as a Chicano, but maybe you're mixed with something else,
Right.
but then also, like, even if you're not mixed, being like a Chicano American is a very unique experience,
Yeah.
because you're not like, because when you go to Mexico, they can tell you're not like one of them.
Right.
I don't know how else to explain that, because when I've been to Mexico, I felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb. And but then even here, I felt like you were still not fully accepted, even as a fifth generation, Hispanic American, right? So
And that makes sense. Just sort of, especially because you're talking about sort of how you were sort of mixing the different cultures together
yeah,
and sort of that. So I'm guessing this also sort of fits into the idea of alienation. Do you sort of feel that as how you were saying, like maybe not quite fitting into the general narrative that is commonly shared with the Chicanos, and sort of like sort of speaking about that and like the piece itself? Because yeah, that is, part of the aspect of the show, of the alienness of being sort of like ostracized or sort of like
Yeah,
separated.
yeah, like I always felt misplaced, right? And maybe that was because I was weird growing up, but I honestly do think being a person who is mixed, you have a hard time finding your people.
Yeah.
You have a hard, and you'd be surprised of how much like internalized racism are
Oh
in
yeah.
families, and I experienced that, and I felt like I was never accepted, like by the white people in my family, by the Mexican people in my family. The only people that really accepted me was my Puerto Rican side because they understand because they were being
Right.
colonized and they're all mixed. Like, that, if you're Puerto Rican, then you're family.
Right.
But in terms of my white and Mexican side, I felt like I just didn't fit what they wanted. I had curly hair. I wasn't tall. I didn't have the features that they were looking for. It was, yeah, I just felt like I couldn't fit in. And then finding other people who were like me growing up was a little bit difficult, but I did find them.
Right.
I did find
Takes a
them.
while.
It does take a while. And and I have found other people who have accepted me in the back then and now, but that was something I always felt like I struggled with because I didn't find that other people had those same narratives, right? And I couldn't relate to the struggle of like, oh, I have to translate documents like to my like I could not
Right.
even fucking imagine like you know so, but I felt like I have a story to tell that other people can also like relate to.
Yeah, because I think that you are still part of this group, part of the family of this. It's just it's a sort of different story as well.
Yeah, and I feel like there's that part of me that always felt like, oh, I'm not Mexican enough. I like you're too brown for the white people, but you're too white for the
Right.
you
That
know
whole sort of
yeah, and I always felt like because I didn't speak Spanish and or like my Spanish was very broken, it's very Americanized, and like I just always felt like, oh, am I really a part of this group? Where do I even belong?
right.
Right? And I felt like throughout this artist journey as well, like it was always trying to find just a place where I could belong.
Yeah, I'm curious about sort of your practice moving forward. Like, what is it that you want to just continue exploring? What sort of aspects of this that you want to take with you? Yeah.
Yeah, so like I guess if you see my typical art and then compare it to the one in the Cheech, I would say it seems drastically different.
Okay.
But I think the common theme in all my work is finding your personal power.
Okay.
Really finding, and for me, that is like my power as a woman. And so I feel like even though that is more touching on the spiritual side, I feel like it still goes in with understanding the power that you do have within you,
Hmm.
that you can either create your own reality, you can just do kind of whatever you want. There are no rules. Like we make up rules in this world, like yeah, sure, like don't murder anyone, like but really, like we all have these like social constructs that are just not real. You can
Yeah.
do whatever you want, and so just do it.
Yeah. No, exactly. I think that I can definitely see that that thread throughout your work, like we were saying about the beginning with like the restricted series of it, sort of talking about power and trying to reclaim that, and like this, the power of like divine femininity. I know that was one of the conversations we had as well. Um, yeah, I think that's such an interesting sort of concept to keep exploring and seeing this sort of the different aspects of it. And yeah, for this, like, how do you see yourself wanting to dive deeper into sort of your heritage, or yeah, I'm curious, like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah,
Because I know that that's sometimes always like a touchy subject. Because I think that a lot of the artists in here, we all kind of struggle with that. Sometimes we feel like we aren't quite enough, or that we don't quite fit in. Hence, why the show is like about alienation.
right, right.
Like yeah. So
I would like to.
okay,
I would like to, especially more of like my Puerto Rican side.
okay,
I just feel like there's, especially here in California, I don't think there's like a lot of representation
mm-mm.
on that. But at the same time, I think I'll just have it like come to me because right now I feel like I'm on a different path at this moment for the planned paintings that I am doing
Okay,
is more about I guess like your social rejects, right?
okay,
Like the ones with the because I'm planning to do a series on prostitution. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of more leaning into the divine timing of it. And if it comes,
Yeah.
it'll come.
Yeah, because like you said, like that feeling of not enough. And I also don't want to, like, I guess, represent something that I'm not.
Yeah,
Right.
I can see
Because
that.
it's like, because I am like Hispanic and I do have these experiences, but it just may not be as like intense as someone else. Right.
Do you feel like maybe you're just sort of, instead of taking up that space, like maybe you're like leaving sort of the room or sort of allowing for other folks to, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm giving a very unique perspective as somebody who is a mixed race and of somebody who is, a long time, I guess, American through the generations, but also experiencing. So, like, right, we don't have the trauma of immigration, right? But we have the trauma of being Hispanic, like
Discriminated.
right here for over 100 years, right? And like, so I have that kind of history, which is also what kind of ties in with the sociology, right? Because then I'm able to talk about it.
Okay. No, for sure. I think that that makes sense. I know that for myself, it definitely took me a while to get to that. It was sort of feeling comfortable within itself before you sort of dive into it, because it seems like you want to just proceed with caution and proceed in a way
Yeah.
that's like mindful and respectful and not sort of like forcing it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that.
And I think that that's a very respectful thing, honestly. I don't think that, because I think that sometimes people feel sort of the pressure or the need to sort of be like, am I enough? And so because they feel like they're not enough, they almost like overcompensate for it.
Yeah, and
And
I don't want to do that.
yeah,
Because, like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be overcompensating and be like, am I Mexican enough? Am I Puerto Rican enough? Am I, and it's like, I just need to accept of who I am and proceed, right? And so that's why I try to make work that just is calling to
yeah,
me, right? And because I think as much as I love, expression of one's culture and your experiences, I think you're more than that though as well,
right.
right? Because that's, I think that also goes back into like labeling,
Yeah,
right? And not to say that labels cannot be good things, right?
right. They can be helpful tools,
Exactly.
but they can also be constraining. And
Exactly. And I don't want that. Like
yeah,
I don't want that. I just think this is a part of me and it's part of my story, but it's not all of me.
right. For your upcoming series that you're working on, I would love to hear a little sneak peek. Like, you're talking about social rejects. Like, how is, tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, so I don't know. So growing up in LA, I lived very close to Sepulveda Boulevard and in the Valley,
Shout out Sepulveda.
yeah, right? And I lived in Van Nuys and Pamarana City. But I was very close to Sepulveda Boulevard, which is notoriously known for prostitutes
Yeah.
and strip clubs and all that stuff. And now I live in Pomona, right off of Holt, and that is also known for prostitutes and all that good stuff, right? And I just feel like, again, just like with the religion, just like with my heritage, these women being around me, being in my vicinity has partially influenced me. And I feel like some of these women who are doing this, I just feel like they should be, maybe highlighted and seeing that, sex work is work,
Yeah.
and that they deserve to be respected. And I think it's also like putting light on, it's not just like them, but it's also like women should not be shamed for the work that they're doing, when it's like, really, you gotta focus on like who's purchasing these things, right? Because it's so easy to victim blame, and I'm just not about that. And I just think there's something artful that they're doing when they stand on the corner, because a lot of these
The
women,
poses,
yeah, they're
the
posing, they're
colors, the
beautiful,
makeup,
yeah.
the outfit. They're so cunty.
They really are, and they own
Yeah.
it. And I just feel
Yeah.
like, and I feel like that's part of owning your personal power. Again, I know that there's people who are trafficked, and I'm not condoning that. But for the ones that, decide that they want to do this, they fucking own it.
Yeah.
And I respect that. I respect that. And I feel like that has influenced me, like, of like owning your sexuality.
Yeah. Having no shame.
Because men don't have shame. Men
Period.
fuck animals.
Oh. What else are you? Because right now, I don't know if the Red series.
Yeah, that's almost done.
I know, but I'm like, you have one more piece. I
I
would
do.
love to hear a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
The last one?
The whole series.
Okay, so The series that I'm doing is it's all in red, and I'm getting really into not just like monochromatic, but I call it like the spectrum of color. So I pick one main color, right? So this painting would be red. So I have red. But then I also have like red deep, red medium, and then the what's
Cadmium red light.
and then we have what's the other red? The one that's translucent,
Like
a crimson.
a crimson. Okay.
Yeah.
Alizarin
Yeah,
crimson.
there we go. The crimson red. And then, yeah, so I use like all those colors and then I'll do like a maybe a purple, like for the dark shadows, right? So it's like creating more depth without just using the one color because I really do like using the one color, but I just wanted to make it like a little bit more different and to create more depth and a little bit more visually interesting than just doing the one color. And I just think because red is such a powerful color, I think red represents a lot of different things. It can represent power, it can represent sensuality, it can represent even danger, right? And so I just felt like for this series, I wanted to do it all in red. So the first iteration of the series is named Asphyxiate, right? And the reason why it's called that is because the person in the painting is wearing a plastic bag. And I feel like in the kink space, you know, there's people who like to be, you know, choked.
Hmm.
And, you know, that's cool and whatever. But I took it as like, you know, you're wearing a mask, right? To like avoid vulnerability. And I put it in a sense where I am attracted to men. So like for me, I find that the men that come in my life, they're like attractive, right? That's where like red comes in. But then there's also an element of danger because you're wearing the most simplest form of a mask, right? Which is just a plastic bag. So it really can put anyone in that position. It doesn't really matter specifically who it is. And in a way, it kind of removes a person from it, right? And in a way, I'm also objectifying these men.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like I'm really challenging some social norms as well. And
Subverting it a bit.
yeah, and also demonstrating my power as a female,
Hmm.
right?
The female gaze.
Yeah, you know, we like things too. And then for the second piece, it was called Anticipation. And to kind of go with the same kind of iteration, it's all red, same dude wearing the plastic bag on the head. But he's in like this pose, like in an empty room, and his legs are open. And it's almost like you're waiting for something to happen
Hmm.
and but you're like but it almost like creates like a sense of like eeriness or fear almost, and that's why I put like anticipation because that's what makes me think of, right, of like something's gonna happen. I don't know if it's gonna be good or bad. And then the last piece will be called Release, because at the end of the series, our model will be lifting, taking off the plastic bag and making it like a human again,
Hmm.
you know, and to like represent that like vulnerability that you don't need to wear this mask, you
Right.
know. And yeah, so that's kind of like that series.
It's lovely. I think that also the exploring it in a single color, seeing all the nuances, seeing all of the different ways in which you could interpret a single color, similar way you can interpret a single person.
Exactly that, you know, because we're not all like, no, I mean, maybe, but one person is not all bad. I
Right.
try to think that, you know, maybe they are, but I like to have hope in humanity.
Right.
So yeah, like it's really just like kind of, and it's also like a tale of my own grief, really, like of these men coming into my life and you know, making these face promises because you know when you see these works, they have a happy face on them, right? And that's why I call it a mask. And it's like you're showing me something that you're not, and you know we want to see who you really are.
Right.
And I also believe that some people will wear masks till the day they die,
Yeah.
you know, and when really we just want to see like who you are
Hmm.
because we're striving for human connection. So that's kind of like my own like version of like finding that connection again, dealing with my grief of like the men that have come in and out of my life and my breakup, and like getting over it because
Yeah.
you know I used to dread actually doing that last painting, right? Because it's of you know so and so's face. But at the same time now I feel like, so like, well, now that I see you for who you are, I don't want you anymore. So in a sense, it's very powerful for me. It's very cathartic, and it's a releasing. So release.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. It's
Oh, thank you.
very just like therapeutic, cathartic.
Yeah, I'm an intense person.
Yeah. No, I think as an artist, you have to be a bit intense.
Sometimes, yeah, no, for sure.
No, I love that. I'm wondering, like, what is your sort of goal if you have one of, like, what would you hope people's takeaway is when they see your work? Because they are just so sometimes, like, intense. Like, what do you hope that they take from it in general? Like, the one at the Cheech? Like, what do you hope that they, yeah, if you have anything with that?
So I guess like I would just like for people to, I guess, notice my work and notice that like my work is done with intention. You know, even though I do just make things because I want to make things,
Right.
but they are done with intention. And I would just hope people can take a moment and see outside of themselves or see themselves like in those perspective of those paintings, right? Because I do a lot of, I guess, like close-ups
Right.
where it's like it's almost like you're experiencing what I'm experiencing or the different experiences or the different memories that I'm placing out. And I would just hope someone can resonate with that because in that way I see you see me and I see you. Right. And that's really what like I have always like strived for like in my life because I feel like growing up I just was never seen. Right. And I just want to make sure that other people are also seen because if you see me, then I see you.
And I think that's a beautiful thing to do. Beautiful way to end it too. Love that. Yeah, let the people know like where can they find you? Do you have anything upcoming? Like what's the move for Dama Divina?
Well, you can find me on my Instagram at underscore Dama Divina.
Website coming soon.
Website coming soon. I don't have any upcoming shows up until like,
This very second, nothing's confirmed.
nothing is confirmed, but very soon I will start making more content and be posting more about like my process and my life. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
I love that you're going to be making blogs, you said, as well,
Yes,
updating.
on the so yeah, so if you want to get to know more on my art on a personal level, I hope to be posting weekly on my website on the blog area of my experience of exhibiting at the Cheech, more in depth of the meaning of the Divine Trine, and then also talking about the trilogy we were just talking about with the, the red pieces and and then so forth, right? And I might even talk about some of the past pieces that I have done.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that'd be really good. Well, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate this.
Yeah.
Yeah, if any of you guys would love to get in contact with Miss Dama Divina, like hit them up, get them in your show, hit us all up. Yeah, you can check me out on Instagram, Art Perry. Comment down below your thoughts on any of this. We would love to start a conversation. And yeah, thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much.
Oh my God. Alrighty. Ciao.
Bye.
Woo!
Yay.
That's a wrap.